DKDB Nashville.
Hello friends, Lou Pickney with you here with a DKDB update for February 16th, 2026. Had a great time this past weekend calling NCAA men's lacrosse games with the Music City Classic out in West Nashville. Had a tremendous time with that, so much fun. And it was back home. Dive right back into it, get ready for the 2026 NFL Draft. The Combine is just around the corner. I've been doing a lot of reading between last night and earlier today. And as you'll have this time of year, quite a few mock drafts coming out on a Monday. I imagine there'll be more later today as well. Of course, I put the best of the best here in the DKDB. This is my personally curated, expert-curated 2026 NFL mock draft database. Very best going here. I'm going to react to some mock drafts that came up earlier today. First, we'll start with Justin Melo of the Draft Network. Let's see what Justin has to say. Got David Bailey giving somebody the side eye. And I encourage everybody, go to these various websites that have these mock drafts. Read this information for yourself. There's a lot of valuable analysis and data to be found. And I'll have the links to these mock drafts being reacted to here in the description section of this YouTube video. So reacting here to the latest mock draft from Justin Melo of the Draft Network. At 1, Justin has Fernando Mendoza, Indiana quarterback, to the Raiders. Almost every mock draft out there with any credibility is going to have Fernando Mendoza at number 1 for the Raiders. It would be a huge shock if that did not happen. At 2, it's interesting that it's Ruben Bain Jr. going to the Jets. Been a lot of talk they may go with Ohio State linebacker Arvell Reese, but there's a line of thought that Bain might be a player the Jets want at number 2. Get that 3-down defensive end ability where you can have him out there on likely running plays, and he's not going to be a liability because he's got great size. And so Justin Melo says Bain to the Jets at 2. At 3, this interests me right here. Caleb Downs, Ohio State safety, going to the Cardinals at 3. It has been many a moon since a safety has gone in the top 3 of the NFL draft. We haven't had a top 5 go since Eric Berry at number 5 overall to Kansas City in the 2010 NFL draft, going back 16 years. But if there's a year and a player for it to happen, this would be the year with so many quarterbacks returning to college, and to have a prospect like Caleb Downs came into the past season with huge expectations. I mean, this is not a surprise, but he managed to live up to them. And so here, it's Justin Melo saying Caleb Downs at 3 to the Cards. At 4, Tennessee Titans. And it's Arvell Reese, a linebacker, also can play edge rusher, also can drop back into coverage if you need to. Not unlike Nick Emenwari, safety from South Carolina, who just won a Super Bowl, the Seattle Seahawks. So here at 4, Justin says the Titans take Arvell Reese. At 5, Justin Melo of the Draft Network says Francis Maui-Noa, offensive tackle, Miami, to the Giants. You see debate between Maui-Noa and Utah tackle Spencer Bono as far as who's going to be the first offensive lineman drafted. Or certainly the first offensive tackle, if nothing else. But the likelihood it would be one of those two, and here it's Maui-Noa to the Giants at 5, filling an offensive line need spot for New York. At 6, Cleveland Browns, Jordan Tyson, wide receiver, Arizona State. Tyson's a tremendous talent. I've talked about him a lot. You've heard him in my past broadcasts. But if he can stay healthy, he is a special player, a dynamic game changer. On any given play, he can just break it. And if he can stay healthy, he should have a tremendous NFL career. Cleveland also has a pick down at number 24, so keep that in mind. So this is my reaction to the latest mock draft from Justin Melo of the Draft Network. The DKDB 2026 NFL mock draft database. I put my name on it. I put the best of the best in here. Let's see what Justin has at 7. David Bailey, edge, Texas Tech to the Commanders. I like this a lot. I think if between Arvell Reese, Reuben Bain Jr., and David Bailey, there's a strong probability that one of those three players, if not more, would be on the board here at number 7 for the Commanders. There's also the question if Caleb Downs was there, would they consider him? Also, might the Commanders consider a wide receiver? I've heard that speculated as well. But if Bailey's there, he's an outstanding edge rusher, and he would be an excellent addition to that Commanders pass rush. And number 8, New Orleans Saints Jeremiah Love, running back Notre Dame. That's what Justin Melo of the Draft Network has here at 8. Well, I personally think the Saints would benefit more from having an ace receiver, a top receiver right here. Jeremiah Love is a tremendous talent. He can also function well as a receiver out of the backfield, which any modern running back is going to need to have if you're going to have any sort of serious first-round consideration. Be dynamic as a receiver. On top of that, though, Love is just so strong and consistent at Notre Dame. I mean, you could trust that he was going to get those yardage on the ground, pick up those first downs, break the long touchdowns. So anyway, so the Saints here at number 8, while receiver might be a consideration, if they really like Jordan Tyson and he's gone, then perhaps it's Jeremiah Love. So then at number 9, the Kansas City Chiefs, Justin Melo says Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver, USC. Talk about dynamic playmakers. Lemon also fits the bill with that. Great hands. He's not going to drop many passes for Kansas City. Well, I really like the idea of Love going to the Chiefs. If he's not there, that can't happen. And so Mekhi Lemon, what Justin has here at 9 to the Chiefs. At 10, Sonny Styles, linebacker, Ohio State to the Bengals. And if Caleb Downs is off the board at this point, the Bengals don't have a huge need at edge coming out of free agency. To be determined on that. We'll find out very soon with some of these teams what they're going to do with perhaps franchise tags being placed. Or maybe a transition tag or two. Normally, they go for the big one normally if they're going to throw a franchise tag on somebody. Anyway, whatever the case here, Styles started his career in Columbus, Ohio as a safety. Made the transition to linebacker. Someday people will look back at that 2024, 2025 Ohio State defense and just how much great talent and dynamic talent they had. Like, not even with the defensive tackles and edge rushers in mind. There have been some great ones as well, but guys that can play multiple spots, whether it's Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, or Sonny Styles. With Styles at 10 to the Bengals. Justin Melo at 11 has Carnell Tate to the Miami Dolphins, and that interests me. This is where I think there's a reflection as far as with some draft analysts. Where do you think these corners, these top cornerbacks are going to go? My most recent mock draft has LSU corner Mansour Delane going to the Giants up at number 5. And there's some I've noticed a lot, or multiple from analysts from the NFL.com crew that have several corners going higher. So that's one line of thought. And you look here, and you've got Mansour Delane to the Cowboys at 12, which means the Dolphins would be passing on what, at least at this point, prior to free agency, would look like a considerable need. But if you really like Carnell Tate, if you want to bring him in, he's got that unique ability to get open in 3 seconds or less. He had 0 drops last season, great hands, reliable, trustworthy. And so the Dolphins, if it's best player available and they really like Tate, he's there at 11, and that's where Justin Melo of the Draft Network says Tate's going to go. Number 12, as noted, Dallas Cowboys, Mansour Delane, corner from LSU. The transfer from Virginia Tech. And while LSU had a down season last year, Delane personally had a very strong season. And I guess the question is going to be for some of these teams, if you have these corners graded more in that 14, 15, 16 range as far as best overall player, do you not go with somebody up in the top 5 if you think you can get a better fit as far as the best overall player goes? But then other lines of thinking are, no, don't sell these corners short. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And again, Dallas at number 20 will be back on the board. Remember, Dallas, I think this would be a spot where Dallas would go with Sonny Styles if he were there. But in this one, he's gone at 10. And Justin's not the only person talking about Styles not being there, so Dallas doesn't have a crack at it. A lot of people are starting to see that as a possibility. But here, it's Delane to the Cowboys, who come back at number 20. Here, 13, Spencer Fano. And I think this reflects what I've seen from a number of analysts. And look, Spencer Fano is a solid prospect. And maybe he will go higher than people think. All you need is one team to believe in you. And keep that in mind. But Fano had an excellent career at Utah. And perhaps he's not seen as a top 5 player, but if he's there in this range here in the teens, any number of teams might say, okay, best player available. You've got a reliable, potential long-term answer at offensive tackle in the modern NFL. To give you serious consideration. For the Rams, will be back on the board at number 29. At 14, Baltimore Ravens. Justin Melo of the Draft Network says Kenyon Sadiq to the Ravens. Sadiq had remaining eligibility at Oregon, and most of the guys with remaining eligibility, Oregon managed to hold on to, but Sadiq, as the top tight end prospect on nearly every board, is realistically that if there's going to be one tight end draft in the first round, Sadiq is likely it. Some have him going lower than this, but the Ravens with a few different options here. New era for Baltimore, and perhaps here they'll go Kenyon Sadiq at 14. That's what Justin Melo of the Draft Network says. Is my reaction to Justin's latest mock draft. Be sure to go ahead and visit these websites. Again, I'll have these links in the description in this YouTube video. Go and read the analysis. There's some valuable information in here. At number 16, the New York Jets with a pick obtained via the Indianapolis Colts. Peter Woods, defensive tackle, Clemson. We'll see how Woods fares at the NFL Combine. I think he's going to impress people. He's got that remarkable quickness for his size. And if he can prove that he's strong enough against the run, then I think he's going to get a lot of consideration. Of course, the New York Jets last year traded Quinnen Williams, and so there is a major need for the Jets at defensive tackle. And there'll be a few options here potentially for the Jets at 16. Jets have to get some pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Had 0 interceptions as a team for the entire 2025 season. Completely unheard of in the NFL. 17 games, no less. Went all the way back to the 1930s. So the Jets have to do some things defensively. And if you go with what Justin Melo is saying here with Reuben Bain Jr. at 2 and then Peter Woods at 16, that front four just got major upgrade. At 17, Detroit Lions, Caleb Lomu. Lomu is a young player. He was a redshirt sophomore. And this may be the higher end of where we'll see Lomu go. But odds are he's going to go on night 1. So here to Detroit. If Detroit doesn't go with a defensive lineman, I would think offensive tackle is perhaps the strongest possibility, depending on who's on the board here. Just thinking about the talent that's out there, the demand for that position, etc. Number 18, Minnesota Vikings, Jermod McCoy, corner out of Tennessee. This is interesting. So this has McCoy still on the board at 18. That would fill a major need for the Minnesota Vikings. McCoy didn't play at all in the 2025 season. He suffered a torn ACL in January of last year. He had a great 2024 season for the Tennessee Vols. And the expectation is that McCoy will be able to be healthy and have a great workout. And he's going to impress teams, just like he was able to impress scouts in the 2024 season. If he can prove he's healthy, he's going to get a lot of looks here. And here it's McCoy to the Vikings at 18. My reaction to the latest mock draft from Justin Melo of the Draft Network, the DKDB. The best of the best in here. Number 19, Carolina Panthers. TJ Parker, edge from Clemson. Parker had a very strong showing in practices at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. The expectation is he'll impress people as well at the Combine. And while Clemson had a season that didn't live up to expectations last year, Parker, while his stats were down, I mean, you still have the tape from 2023 and 2024 to see, and you've got the new stuff. Whatever happened last year with Clemson, Parker seems to be impressing people and getting a lot of consideration here in this part of this first round. Here it's at number 19, Justin Melo saying P.J. Parker to the Carolina Panthers. So quite a few options here at 19. At 20, Dallas Cowboys back on the board. Let me go corner at 12. Go linebacker here, C.J. Allen. Off-ball linebacker, Georgia. One of the very best prospects at the position. That would be kind of high compared to some ranges estimated for Allen, but that's more about the way that off-ball linebacker is valued as a position. When it comes to priority spots, the NFL being so skewed and continuing to tilt more and more in favor of passing attacks and in turn passing defenses. But Allen's really good, and so here Justin has C.J. Allen to the Dallas Cowboys at 20. At number 21, Justin Melo says Zachariah Branch to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like this one a lot. With the Steelers, there's been a lot of talk that they may end up getting Aaron Rodgers to come back for the 2026 season. That gives you some latitude if you're the Steelers. They know it's coming in next year's draft as far as those quarterback prospects go. Branch, a tremendous slot receiver. He's got this extra gear. If you pull up his game video sometime, and you'll see. He can just, when he breaks into the open field, he's got that extra level he can get to. Great quickness, and so the Steelers here at 21. Justin Melo says Zachariah Branch, wide receiver, Georgia. At 22, LA Chargers, Vanga. If you've watched any of my stuff at all, you know I'm a big fan of this particular matchup, the way the team needs are now and player values are perceived. Vega, one of the best interior offensive lineman prospects, if not the best, in this class. And Vanga to the Chargers. I think that makes a lot of sense. If he's there on the board, he may be gone well before that spot. Although, much like off-ball linebacker, interior offensive line is not seen as a priority position. But the fact that Vanga Yone is getting this much consideration here should speak volumes about the way that he's perceived as a value by teams in the NFL. At 23, the Philadelphia Eagles. I really enjoy going through these mocks and seeing what some of these certain teams that have a lot of variance. The Eagles are one of them. Get a lot of different thoughts on what they might do. And Justin Melo of the Draft Network here at 23 says Cassius Howell, edge from Texas A&M. And again, as Justin notes here, free agency will perhaps temper the thoughts as far as the Eagles and their first-round pick. But Howell, with 11.5 sacks last season, and some top-notch competition. Even if he doesn't have the measurables like what you want in the ideal range as far as arm length goes, you just look at his tape. He's a great edge rusher. He would be a good addition to the Eagles if he's on the board at 23. He might not be there. He'll be gone well before this spot. At 24, Cleveland back on the board. So if Cleveland goes receiver at 6, they come back at 24. And here's Monroe Freeling, offensive tackle, Georgia. Freeling's getting more and more talk in that mid to late first round range. So that could be a nice move here for the Browns. Go Freeling at 24. At 25, Justin Melo of the Draft Network says Derek Moore, edge from Michigan. I always find it interesting when there are players that haven't shown up as much, at least recently, in mock drafts. They start to surface, and there's usually a reason. So Moore, edge rusher for the Bears. For talk, the Bears might go defensive tackle. So D-line makes sense. And here it's more to the Bears in the latest mock draft from Justin Melo of the Draft Network. Number 26, Buffalo Bills. Jake Golday, linebacker from Cincinnati. And I like the idea of C.J. Allen if he's on the board going to Buffalo. But if he's not on the board, then that's not a viable possibility. And so Golday's his name's been showing up quite a bit on boards as of late, moving up. Or been given consideration. And again, there are some inherent limitations to the non-priority positions like off-ball linebacker, but as prolific a tackler as Golday is, he's going to get some looks. That's what Justin Melo of the Draft Network says here at 26. At 27, Justin says Casey Concepcion to the 49ers. So depending, Brandon Ayuk to be determined there. But if he ends up not returning for this upcoming season, the 49ers bring in Concepcion. Just electric, tremendous receiver. I've seen this name matched with the 49ers quite a bit. So Concepcion to the 49ers is quite a bit of talk of that. Something to keep in mind at this point. At 28, Houston Texans, Akeem Mesidor, edge. He turns 25 years old in early April, which is old for an NFL prospect as a first-round target. That just is almost unheard of. It's unusual, but Mesidor had a tremendous 2025 season for the Miami Hurricanes. And what a 1-2 combo they had. Mesidor coming off the edge on one side and Reuben Bain Jr. on the other. But there's a good reason the Miami Hurricanes made it all the way to the college football playoff championship game. Edge rush pressure. From Mesidor to the Texans, I think Mesidor will be best served going to a team that is on the cusp of making it to the Super Bowl, and the Texans coming off a really strong season. Houston fans have been waiting a while, and perhaps Mesidor at 28 would be the next piece to add to that puzzle. At 29, here's the LA Rams back on the board going Colton Hood, corner from Tennessee. Hood had to really step up this past season for the Tennessee Vols with Jermod McCoy out injured, and he performed well for Tennessee. There'll be a lot of names at corner you're going to hear talked about in this late first round range. A lot of talk as of late of Colton Hood, and that's what Justin Melo has here at 29 to the LA Rams. At 30, Denver Broncos, Caden Proctor, offensive tackle, Alabama, 6'7", 366 pounds, and yet so athletic that he could viably play guard in the NFL. When he's healthy and dialed in, physically, he is just very difficult for an edge rusher to get past. And so here it's Proctor to the Broncos at 30. At 31, Justin Melo says Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the New England Patriots. Patriots, the 2025 AFC champions, coming off that Super Bowl appearance. Perhaps go McNeil-Warren. It's going to be really interesting to see with Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Is he going to run a 40 at the Combine? Will he run one at Toledo's Pro Day? If he shows he's got the speed that people expect from an NFL prospect, I think that's going to be very much to his advantage, because there are some questions about that at this point in some circles. But if he can go out there and prove it, then there's also the fact that he's performed well in his college career. And while safety is one of those non-primary positions as far as the premium picks are used, late first round you start seeing safeties start to show up at times. And if McNeil-Warren's able to impress, then the Patriots at 31, a possibility. And finally at 32, Seattle Seahawks, Justin Melo of the Draft Network says Brandon Cisse, corner from South Carolina. So that's my reaction to the latest mock draft from Justin Melo of the Draft Network. It's a DKDB update. Up next, Gordon McGuinness from PFF. Posted this morning. Early bird, get that posted 5 a.m. Eastern. And again, I invite everybody, in fact, I encourage you, go and read these mock drafts. Go visit these websites. I put the best of the best here in the DKDB. I put my name on it. I take that very seriously. Been doing this now for 23 years as far as an online presence has gone. And this rebrand, and it's hosted on DraftKing.com. I've owned that domain for almost 23 years. And with DKDB, this is a database of the very best of the best mock drafts. These are human-crafted, not AI slop, not mass-produced mocks. No gimmicks. I don't want a house of 1,000 trades. I look for the credibility. I'm tied for third as far as performance in the Huddle Report scoring from the last 5 years with mock drafts. The only two people out there that have higher score than I've had, those two are Jason Boris, only posts one per year. Those will go up the first day of the draft on the Times News Online website. And then Brendan Donahue of Sharp Football Analysis. I wonder if Brendan's mock draft, his first, might be coming out here fairly soon. I believe last year it was mid-February, although in years prior it was early March, as best I can tell from looking back through Twitter or /X, as it's known now. It's still hard not to call it Twitter. Old habits die hard. Anyway, so that's what's coming up with those two. That's why they have that spot up here with me. Get the stars. And so that's something to keep in mind for draft day. See what Jason has here. But I've got a lot of respected analysts, major websites, people. Again, this is where my expertise comes into play here. Who gets in and who doesn't. And so let's hear from Gordon McGuinness of PFF. As you would expect at number 1, Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. The Raiders, again, anything with that not there, I mean, highly sus about the credibility of a mock. Unless somebody has some really fascinating inside info. It's hard to see how the Raiders could not go with Mendoza. And 2, this is interesting. This is really interesting. Gordon McGuinness says Caleb Downs at number 2, the New York Jets. Wow. You gotta go back decades for that. A safety going top 2. But again, as I talked about earlier, the New York Jets last season did not have a single interception as a team, which is just very difficult to fathom. But it happened. So they've got to do something. And particularly if you have the outlook that most of the corners are going to be down to that 14, 15, 16 range as far as overall best available player on a given team's board. With Downs, nearly everybody's going to have him near the top. His ability to read and react is just unlike anything we've seen in the NFL in a very long time as far as prospects coming out of college. He's legit. So the Jets at 2, Caleb Downs. This is my reaction to the latest mock draft. Gordon McGuinness of PFF. At 3, Gordon says Arizona, going with edge rusher David Bailey, Texas Tech. The transfer from Stanford had a lot of pressure this past season. Texas Tech, very aggressive with NIL spending, and it paid off. They had a great year. Texas Tech fans had a lot to be happy about. David Bailey was a large part of that. And here, Gordon says Bailey to the Cards at 3. So at 4, Tennessee Titans, a matchup that I personally, as a Titans fan, would love to see happen with Reuben Bain Jr., edge rusher Miami. If the Titans could use a 3-down defensive end like Reuben Bain would be, not a liability against the run. At Bain from the outside. We go with Jeffrey Simmons, who is vastly underrated as an interior defensive lineman, his ability to get pressure. It was fun watching Titans games while they were out of contention there late in the season, but Jeffrey Simmons had the long sleeves with the red. He would stand out. It was like something from a video game, like where they would put a spotlight on the best play, like, oh, you see where Jeffrey Simmons is at all times. But the Titans need to bring an edge rusher in, an elite one, and here's their chance with Reuben Bain at 4. And number 5, Gordon McGuinness from PFF says Sonny Styles to the Giants. See, here's another example of an analyst saying Styles won't be there for Dallas at 12. Forget falling to 20. Here he's not even out of the top 5. But again, he's not an everyday off-ball linebacker because of the hybrid nature of his skill set. Started as a safety, moved to linebacker. Could you imagine they had safeties like with Styles and Down? I mean, they dropped Styles back into coverage with Downs if they wanted to. And then Arvell Reese and a lot of other great players. There was a good reason that Ohio State won the 2024 College Football National Championship. Anyway, here it's 5. It's the Giants going Sonny Styles. So my reaction here to the latest mock draft from Gordon McGuinness of PFF. Number 6, Cleveland Browns, Carnell Tate. I've seen this matchup on a lot of different draft boards. I think it makes sense. The Browns here, Tate, just because of his reliability. And look, if you want to give Shedeur Sanders a chance next year at quarterback, you've got to give him at least 1 or 2 high-end prospects to throw to. And Carnell Tate is not going to have a blistering 40-yard dash time. That's not the expectation. He's fast, don't get me wrong. You can't be slow and play in the NFL. That just doesn't work. But with Carnell Tate, he can get open remarkably well in 3 seconds or less, which is really what you need in the modern NFL. Those quarterbacks are trying to release the ball as quickly as they can. That pass rush gets to him. And Carnell Tate's reliable. He's going to catch the ball. And so here it's Carnell Tate to the Browns at 6. At 7, Gordon McGuinness from PFF says, Jeremiah Love to the Washington Commanders. We saw that from Walter Football the other day. I've seen people saying Love not even available for the Saints at 8, but instead off the board to the Commanders. And as much as it would be interesting to see Love with Kansas City paired up with Patrick Mahomes once he's healthy, it would also be interesting to see Jeremiah Love with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. Again, it's not just a great runner you get with Love. He's also an excellent receiver out of the backfield. But number 8, Gordon McGuinness says, this is interesting. Cassius Howell to the Saints at number 8. That is about as high as you're going to see with Howell. That's interesting. The 11.5 sacks last season certainly caught people's attention. And if you're not hung up on the measurables or the arm length, if you think that he's going to be okay on that, that could be a nice addition to that Saints pass rush. That's what Gordon McGuinness of PFF has here at 8. My reaction to Gordon's latest mock draft, just out earlier today. At 9, the Chiefs, Mekhi Lemon. Here's another thought that, okay, the Chiefs could very easily go with a receiver here. That electric playmaker type. Lemon fits the bill. A reliable, he's got great hands. That would be very interesting. That's what happened to the Chiefs at 9. At 10, Francis Maui-Noah still on the board, going to the Bengals at number 10. And I think this would perhaps fall into best player available. Okay, you missed out on... Well, here's Arvell Reese still on the board, which is interesting. So Reese still on the board, but instead, well, not all the defensive players are gone. So Maui-Noah to the Bengals at 10. I keep Joe Burrow upright. And again, what Cincinnati does here will in large part be impacted by the moves that'll happen in free agency. That's something else to keep in mind. At 11, Miami Dolphins, Jordan Tyson, receiver, Arizona State, when he's healthy. One of the most entertaining players to watch as a neutral fan. Just because you know on any play, he can just break one and go take it to the house. So the Dolphins, while they have needs at corner, here's another example where there's corners available. Arvell Reese is available, but instead they go receiver with Jordan Tyson. At number 12, Gordon McGuinness says Arvell Reese to the Dallas Cowboys at 12. When you think about, there are very few mock drafts from credible analysts that have Reese at this point slotting to 12. So it's something to keep in mind. Okay. And it could happen. You never know. The draft process, things can surprise you at times, although it's not like it's Reese falling out of the first round. It's just a bit of a slide here that could be tremendous fortune for Dallas. I feel like I'm teasing Cowboys fans even thinking of this as a possibility, and yet there will be players that are going to fall. Number 13, Mansour Delane still on the board, going to the LA Rams at number 13. Rams will be back on the board at number 29. And look at players they want at receiver aren't there. Maybe offensive tackle if they would have gone with Maui-Noah. Well, that's not an option. Mansour Delane would fit a need. He had a great season at LSU after a previously strong career at Virginia Tech, but he really stepped his game up last year in spite of LSU's struggles. And so here it's Delane to the Rams at 13. This is my reaction. Latest mock draft from Gordon McGuinness, PFF. Or the DKDB, my personally curated collection of the very best mock drafts. I invite you, be sure to bookmark the page. Visit it frequently. I'll update it again later today. I imagine there'll be more mocks that'll come out after I record this. This will be going up Monday evening U.S. time. Let's continue with my reaction to the latest mock draft. Gordon McGuinness, PFF. At number 14, Denzel Boston. This is relatively high as far as where I've seen Boston tend to be slotted. Reflect the Ravens going receiver as opposed for going with an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman like some have thought. The Boston on the board. Again, they've got changes that are happening there in Baltimore. The Harbaugh era is over. At 15, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jermod McCoy from Tennessee. I think that's a nice pickup for the Bucs if he's there, especially if they don't have the linebackers that you want. McCoy, if he can prove at his workouts that he's healthy and back to full speed and full strength, he's going to get a lot of looks at worst in this mid-range here. At 16, the New York Jets back on the board. Going with Peter Woods, defensive tackle, Clemson, and tremendous quickness, a great pass rusher. And the rare case of where there's a question of how sturdy he would be against the run. Because remember, Clemson tried to turn him into an edge rusher at one point, which really wasn't a good fit. He's much more effective working from an interior defensive line position. Very, very difficult to contain him. So the Jets, they traded Quinnen Williams last year, and now here they go Peter Woods at number 16. At 17, Gordon McGuinness of Pro Football Focus says, Keldrick Falk, edge from Auburn. He's got size, talking about a 3-down defensive end. He's got the size to stop the run. Detroit, there's been talk that they go offensive line, defensive line as well. Falk could be a very nice pickup here for the Lions at 17. At 18, Gordon McGuinness says, Avion Terrell, corner from Clemson. Minnesota Vikings. A big need for the Vikes. There'll be several corners that should be available in this range, at least the way some of these projections are playing out. There are a couple over on NFL.com that are saying some of these corners will go earlier, so if nothing else, that might reflect even perhaps a bit of a bargain if some of these players fall further than some analysts think would be their more realistic range. Number 19, Caleb Banks, defensive tackle, Florida. You'll get a lot of variety with the Panthers. Like the Panthers, the Eagles, and the Bears. You get a lot of different projections, different positions, different players. Caleb Banks impressed a lot of people at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile during those practices. He only played 2 games last season. He dealt with injuries. But he's got tremendous size and tremendous athleticism. And that combination, when you're making the freaks list from Bruce Feldman, and you can perform as well as he can, pressuring opposing quarterbacks. Like whatever concerns there might be about his ability to stop the run, it's all about the passing game in the modern NFL, although at least to some degree you do have to take the run into account. But with Banks on the board here, Gordon says Carolina goes with Banks at 19. Number 20, TJ Parker, Dallas Cowboys, edge rusher, Clemson. I like this a lot. If Dallas goes with any number of, if you don't go with an edge at 12, even if you go linebacker, if you go defense, you can still go defense. This is one of the picks that Dallas received as part of the Micah Parsons trade with the Green Bay Packers last year. Dallas needs help at edge rusher, and here they go, TJ Parker, Clemson. 21, Hayden Proctor to the Steelers. And you'll see Proctor's name all over the place. Teams needing tackles, teams needing guards. A 366-pound man that is so athletic that he could viably play guard in the NFL. You just don't get that every day. So Proctor, wherever he ends up, is going to be interesting to see how it plays out for him. If he stays healthy and gets dialed in, I think he's going to have a great career in the NFL. And here he goes, Pittsburgh at 21. At 22, Gordon McGuinness of PFF says, Vanga Ione to the Chargers. Again, I've mentioned this many times. I love this matchup, at least the way team needs are now. If Vanga is there, and he might not be there, but if he is, I think that's a great matchup as far as team need, overall ability, and perhaps the best interior offensive lineman in the draft. Although here's a case where Proctor could play guard. You say, well, if you want to classify him as potentially just OL for offensive line, there's Proctor maybe playing guard going ahead of Vanga. But I think Proctor's kind of a one of one. So when I talk about interior offensive line, I think Proctor kind of has his own category. Special talent gets special consideration. So Vanga at 22 to the Chargers at 23. Spencer Fano. I've talked about this a bit. There's been some talk, some analysts are saying, look, Fano, solid prospect, but maybe more realistic that he'll go mid to late first. So we'll see how Fano does with the interviews and the whole gauntlet these players go through. As far as the team's trying to find out who these players are, how they're going to fit. It's a very comprehensive process. And so, look, that's great for the Eagles. Fano, a guy that's been talked about potentially as a top 3 pick, and here he's at 23. Going to the Eagles. Gordon McGuinness at 24. Monroe Freeling. Here's another thought that Freeling will go here. Not just like close to the end of the first, but here at 24 to Cleveland. So if Cleveland goes receiver at 6, you come back at 24, go offensive tackle. You give Shedeur Sanders a chance with a top-notch wide receiver. And then an offensive lineman that give him time to throw the ball. They don't give you much time to prove yourself in the NFL. And look, if it doesn't work for Cleveland this upcoming season, they may have some other options at quarterback for next year's draft. At 25, Chicago Bears. Caden McDonald, Ohio State. Played a lot at nose guard right up against the center for the opponents. It's very difficult to get tackles from loss from that spot, and he got 8.5 last season alone. In a position where Ohio State had a lot of players from that championship team in 2024 that went to the NFL, McDonald really had to step up, and he did. That was another strong season for Ohio State. And here it's the Bears going defensive tackle with Caden McDonald at 25. At 26, Gordon McGuinness says, Omar Cooper Jr., Indiana receiver for the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have a need at receiver. I felt pretty strongly that Indiana's wide receivers are underrated. Now, I've known about Charlie Becker since he was in high school. He went to Father Ryan High School in Nashville, just like I did. So I'm well aware of his ability. He's not in this draft. But I'm not even just talking about him. Indiana as a whole had a great receiver core, which made it work very well with Mendoza at quarterback. So here is Omar Cooper Jr. And again, PFF has some great stats. This is like a brief overview here, but I encourage everybody, go and read these mock drafts. There's some helpful information in here. Give you an idea who these players are. 27, I told you this has been showing up a lot. 49ers and Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. And here's another thought, just like we saw earlier from Justin Melo. Here it's Gordon McGuinness also saying the expectation the 49ers will trade wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. So if that happens, Concepcion, big-time playmaker for the Niners at 27. At 28, here's Caleb Lomu still on the board. I thought that maybe Lomu would go to Cleveland at 24, and maybe he will. But here he's still available for the Texans. Interior offensive line is a need, but Lomu's a versatile player. He's young, just a redshirt sophomore. But you imagine he came out with the expectation he would be a first-round pick, or at worst, early second. At 29, here's Ty Simpson going to the LA Rams. So the Rams, you get a chance at number 13. Let's take a look at what Gordon had up here. Good to compare. Okay, Mansour Delane. Could be a top 5 pick overall if it plays out that way. There at 13, you fill the corner need. And at 29, you get Ty Simpson. And so you know that Matthew Stafford's going to be back next season. And a tremendous 2025. But the Rams do, I think, longer term at quarterback. And if they like Simpson, now the question is, if you like Simpson enough to use a first-round selection on him, and we'll get to this more in a minute, would you wait? Will you use the latter of 2 first-round picks? Like with the Rams passing him at 13, if they truly believe he's worthy of a first-round selection. We'll see. Number 30, Kenyon Sadiq to the Denver Broncos. This tends to be the floor, I've noticed, when it comes to where Sadiq might go. I haven't seen very many mocks that have Sadiq falling out of the first round. And if he's still available at 30, the Broncos add another weapon for Bo Nix when he's healthy and ready to go for the upcoming season. Sadiq at 30 to the Denver Broncos. At 31, Gordon McGuinness, PFF says Emmanuel Pregnon, offensive guard, Oregon. The Patriots, the AFC champions, looking to come back again this upcoming season with a strong crew. Here they bolster their interior offensive line with Pregnon. Finally at 32, here's another thought that it'll be Brandon Cisse of South Carolina to the Seattle Seahawks at 32. Seahawks expected to have multiple corners leaving free agency. Just with a salary cap, it's not tenable to keep everybody. And you win a Super Bowl, other teams are going to go after your free agents. That is a time-honored tradition in the NFL. That's my reaction to the latest mock draft from Gordon McGuinness of PFF. So finally, we'll have one more here. Charlie Campbell of Walter Football. Let's see what Charlie has here. At 1, Fernando Mendoza, as you would expect to the Raiders. At 2, Ty Simpson, as I noted. This is the flip side of thinking Simpson would go at 16 to the Jets or at 29 to the Rams. Because the question is, if you truly believe a quarterback is worthy of using a first-round pick on, are you going to risk him sliding? Now, it's a bit different perhaps with the Jets at 2, depending on how they value some of these very top prospects. But Charlie Campbell of Walter Football says Ty Simpson to the Jets at 2. At 3, Spencer Fano. We just saw him down at number 23 from what Gordon had from PFF and Gordon McGuinness. And here Charlie Campbell from Walter Football has Fano going at 3 to the Arizona Cardinals. Cards will have a need at right offensive tackle for next season. At 24, Arvell Reese on the board. So the Titans get Ohio State linebacker Arvell Reese, dynamic player, edge rusher, linebacker, can do a lot of different things. Very promising prospect going here at 4 to the Titans. At 5, Charlie Campbell has Caleb Downs, safety from Ohio State. The first time for a safety to go top 5 in 16 years in the NFL draft. And the Giants, here goes Downs at number 5. At 6, Francis Mauigoa to the Browns. Here's the flip side. Sometimes you see with offensive tackle and wide receiver, if the Browns are going to go after one of each, it seldom actually works out this way, but it's helpful for trying to put together what might happen in a draft. So if the Browns are going to go receiver later, if Mauigoa is there and they think, look, we really like him, we think he's the best or second best or whatever, as far as those prospects at tackle go, they go Mauigoa at 6. At 7, Charlie Campbell as Washington Commanders, David Bailey, edge, Texas Tech. It makes a lot of sense. At 8, here's another thought that Jeremiah Love would go to the Saints at number 8. I think the thought process behind it is, yes, the Saints need help at receiver, but Love would be a tremendous benefit as far as a receiver out of the backfield, plus his ability to run the ball. Really help out Tyler Shuck. So here, Charlie Campbell says Love to the Saints at number 8. At number 9, Reuben Bain Jr. still on the board, edge rusher to Kansas City. I think if Bain or Bailey or Arvell Reese, if any of those players were there, I think that's a viable possibility for the Chiefs at 9. Go edge rusher, especially if Love is gone at this point. At number 10, Charlie Campbell says Peter Woods to the Bengals. Very quick first step. And again, there are some concerns possibly as far as how you're going to have Woods fare against the run, but he's already starting to prove some people that be worthwhile taking. As a top 10 pick, that would be interesting. That's what Charlie Campbell has. Woods going to the Bengals at 10. At 11, Caden Proctor. Like I've mentioned, you'll see his name all over the place. Bunch of different teams, which makes it really interesting. And the thought from Charlie Campbell here, noting that Mauigoa would be able to play right guard. So that's the flexibility and versatility of something like Proctor. A massive size, and yet athletic enough where he can step in right away and play guard, which is wild. At 12, here's another thought that Mansour Delane would still be on the board, and Dallas gets Delane at number 12. Charlie Campbell at 13, Jermod McCoy. Here's the range where we're starting to see some corners go with these mocks. McCoy to the Rams at 13. The Rams back on the board at 29. At 14, Keldrick Falk, edge rusher, Auburn. Great size. Ravens will have several different options here, but Falk is a well-regarded edge prospect. Here it's Charlie Campbell of Walter Football saying Falk to the Ravens at 14. Number 15, Sonny Styles still on the board. I don't think Styles will make it past Tampa Bay if he's there. We've seen some recent mocks that have Styles going even higher than this, like above even where Dallas might take him at 12. So he's there. I think that's a positive for the Bucs. he would fill a need for that Buccaneers team. At 16, Carnell Tate's still on the board. And there is some thought with these receivers. You see it, and it's not just one receiver falling, but several different ones that kind of just, the way it works out, if somebody is a late riser, then somebody gets perhaps bumped from where their perceived spot's going to be. So the Jets go defense at 2, come back at 16, go with Carnell Tate. So this is my reaction to the latest mock draft from Charlie Campbell of Walter Football. It's part of the DKDB 2026 NFL mock draft database, curated by me. Got my name on it. With the very best of the best in here. Keep this updated on a regular basis. Even all those men's lacrosse games I called over the weekend. Got home and immediately got in saying, who's got the new stuff? Speaking of the new stuff, looking right here what Charlie Campbell has. Came out earlier today. Number 17, Caleb Lobu to the Lions. So I thought with the Lions, either they go defensive line or offensive line. And Lobu, young player, be a nice addition to that Lions team. At 18, Minnesota fills a corner need with Avion Terrell out of Clemson. I like that. At 19, Caleb Banks, defensive tackle, Florida. Great athleticism, great size. And so the Panthers, again, all over the place as far as those projections, the way it looks now. But here they go with Banks at 19. At 20, R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher, Oklahoma. Charlie Campbell says Thomas goes to Dallas at number 20. So Dallas goes with corner at 12 and then back with an edge at 20. Number 21, Pittsburgh Steelers, Jordan Tyson. There's Tyson still on the board at 21. And that can work out quite well for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who could use a receiver in this spot. 22, Zion Young. Both Charlie Campbell and Walter Cherepinski have been bullish on Young for some time. Edge rusher from Mizzou. Here the Chargers go with the edge rusher Young at 22. 23, Kenyon Sadiq still on the board, going to the Eagles at 23. Be a very nice addition for that Eagles team. 24, Denzel Boston on the board, so the Browns go with Maui Noah up at 6, come back at 24. And then here's Boston, so it's offensive tackle receiver. See that in a lot of mocks. There's a lot of talent at those two spots, and the Browns have needs there. At 25, here's another thought. It'll be Cade McDonald. Another thought that the Chicago Bears will go interior defensive line. And the 8.5 tackles for loss last season, that nose guard position. I mean, he wasn't always above the center or opposite the center, but he was enough where that makes it very difficult to do what he did. And he's able to do that because he's very physically gifted and able to make it happen. At 26, Cassius Howell still on the board. We saw one mock earlier had Howell going a lot higher. This could be best player available. And so it's the edge rusher Howell, who had 11.5 sacks last season for Texas A&M. Going to the Bills at 26. At 27, Charlie Campbell says Casey Concepcion to the 49ers. We're starting to see that over and over and over. And you can't get too attached to any player or team, especially the further you get from the top of the draft board. But here it's, again, Concepcion to the 49ers. At 28, Charlie Campbell goes with Vanga Ione, guard. Penn State going to the Houston Texans, who need help at interior offensive line. And I think Vanga could be a great addition there. At 29, Mekhi Lemon still on the board. Going to the Rams at 29. I think that would be the Rams would get a lot of A grades if they could pull that off in this draft. If he's still there. He's a steady receiver too. He's a great playmaker. So it's interesting the thought that the 49ers would pass on Lemon and go with Concepcion, but that connection has been whispered about a bit, and that's more than just happenstance that happens. If that remains the need for the 49ers, we still have more than 2 months between now and the first night of the 2026 NFL Draft. So Lemon at 29 to the Rams at 30. Charlie Campbell says C.J. Allen, linebacker, Georgia. The Broncos. I think that's a great matchup if Allen is there. Certainly not a guarantee, but if he's there, Broncos at 30 go C.J. Allen. At 31, Blake Miller, offensive tackle, Clemson. Charlie Campbell says Miller, the Pats at 31. And then at 32, Brandon Cisse, corner, South Carolina, to the Seattle Seahawks. So that's my reaction. My reactions, plural, to these 3 most recent additions, as far as the updates here to the DKDB my personally curated 2026 NFL mock draft database. That's it for this update for February 16th. I'm your host, Lou Pickney. Again, be sure the DKDB, bookmark the page. Check it frequently. I'll keep it updated with the latest from the very best in this business. That's it for this update. We'll talk again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.